Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Jess and this is Philodendrons. Today we're going to be doing a video on propagation. This is my first video, so if it's not the greatest, I'm sorry. But I'm going to do my best. So I have 3 different plants with me today that I'm going to be doing some chopping and propping. I'm going to do my best to link any products that I'm using in the description if I have a link for them. If I do not, then I'm sorry. Maybe you could find a substitute. I do have an Instagram account if you'd like to follow me there. It is at Philodendrons. It is spelled the same as the YouTube channel that you're on right now. I would appreciate it if you could go ahead on over there and follow me. I post updates on my plants every day, almost every day. And then here I'll be posting some videos as well. If you have a suggestion for a video, please feel free to leave it below in the comments. I'll do my best to read them. And with that, let me just go ahead and get started. So the way that I do my propagations typically is I have smaller cuttings. So I like to do them in a clear plastic cup, just like this. I get them in like a 50 pack from Amazon. I'll link in the description for that product. I like these because they're clear. Some people that use these like to put holes in the bottom. I don't put holes in them just because I don't water them that much. You don't need a lot of water when you're working with a cutting. I also use sphagnum moss, which I love this brand. This is spag moss. My friend Amanda actually sent this to me and I love it. It's my favorite in the whole wide world. This doesn't look like a lot. It's like half an inch thick, if maybe a little bit more. But what you would do is you're gonna soak that and bear with me. Get it fluffy. It does expand a lot. That's gonna fit a giant bowl, but you want it moist so that you can feel the moisture in your hands, but not to the point where you're squeezing it and water is coming out. So this is a little bit wet, so I'm gonna go ahead and just squeeze the excess moisture out. I have it in a bag because when I'm trying to get it moist or get it wet, I don't like all the little pieces that fall off and get stuck to my hands. And that is another reason also why I'm wearing gloves. So I'm wearing gloves. You don't have to wear gloves if you don't want to. It's your own personal preference. I just like wearing gloves. Okay. Another thing that you could use, I love using, is perlite. This might be loud, so forgive me if it is. This is organic perlite. I got this giant bag for like 16 bucks on Amazon. This particular brand is neat because it comes with a handle and it's Ziploc, so you can close it again. What I like to do is fill each one of my little cups with like, I don't know, maybe ½ inch, ¼ inch with perlite. It's not an exact science. I just fill it up until it looks right. So I'm gonna make my life easy and just scoop. So this is a little bit too much, but I can use it to fill another cup. Okay, so there's 2 cups. It doesn't need to be exact. Also, just a word of warning with perlite, it is very dusty, so I don't know if you saw the dust kick up when I just poured it from one cup to another. If you have asthma or breathing problems, I would suggest getting it wet first because that'll really help cut down with the dust. It will stick to your hands, but it doesn't matter if you have gloves. So you're gonna go ahead and do the same thing. However many cuttings you're doing, this is what I like to do. I just put a little bit of perlite in the bottom of each of my cups. But this is my preferred method, so just take all the dust out. When you are gonna water these, I'll just show you now while I have the cups ready because this is when I normally add my water. I use a small squeezy bottle like this, but it doesn't really matter. When you add water to these to water your cuttings and keep them hydrated, you want to keep water in, but you don't want it to go over the top of this layer of perlite. So you can fill it almost to the top if you want, that's fine. This is how I do it, by the way. I'm not a professional. I'm a hobbyist. And again, you'll repeat that with all of your cups. However many cuttings you're doing, just want to add water. You don't want it to go over the top layer of your perlite. Doesn't have to be exact, it's fine. The reason why you don't want it to go over the top of your perlite is because the moss that we just talked about in a minute is going to go on top of this, which is also moist. The perlite is going to act like a wick, similar to leca. So it's gonna suck moisture up from the bottom, and it's gonna touch the sphagnum moss, and it keeps it hydrated longer. I don't know. I'm not sciencey. I don't know exactly how it works, but it works for me. So, all right. So we're gonna do these ones here. Now that you have your cups basically filled with perlite, you can take a little tiny bit of sphagnum moss, and you can rip it. It doesn't. This is gonna act as your buffer for your cutting. When you take your cutting, you want to make sure that your cutting isn't touching the water directly. So you have a little bed in here that you can stick the end right on top of. And I'll show you that here after I take a cutting. You'll repeat that with the other cups. Just a little bed. Again, doesn't have to be exact. It's fine if it's not. You just don't want your cutting to sit on top of the perlite directly. And let me just get, oop. Now, once you have all of your cups ready with your perlite and sphagnum moss, that one might need a little bit more. A perlite and sphagnum moss buffer and a little bit of water, you can take your cuttings and plop them in there. Now, cuttings. I talked about this on my Instagram, so people who are on there are gonna know that I'm gonna be chopping this. This is a Philodendron campos portorum. Campos portorum. I think I pronounced it right. These plants are super fast growers. This lighting is not great, but the colors on this plant can range from a green to even like a reddish. Doesn't show up very well, maybe. But it grows like crazy. You can see this stick right here. This is a stick. I literally started with a stick in March. So they were super fast growers. Now, I don't know if you can also tell, but all these little white things hanging off here, little stringy looking things, those are all roots that had started forming in my cabinet. My cabinet is constantly about 70+% humidity and temperatures in the high 70s as well. I have grow lights that are on in there like 12 to 15 hours a day. Just whenever I go to bed, I turn them off. Yeah, we're gonna chop it. Now, what you want to make sure that you're doing when you're trying to propagate plants is that you have a sharp pair of scissors. You can use pruning shears, you can use an X-Acto knife, a knife, whatever. Doesn't matter. Just make sure that it's clean and sanitary. So I have some alcohol spray. Alcohol will do the job. Some people like to use a bleach and water mixture. I've seen people heat it up. So I'm just gonna spritz the blades with the alcohol mixture, shake it off. And then once it's dry, we are gonna take some cuttings and get them ready. So what we're looking for, any section where you see these roots coming out, number one, is a good spot. Each one of those are nodes. So each one of those is an area where potentially you could have a new plant grow from. This top cutting here, if you see a node, which in this case it is here, but it's hidden under this old cataphyll, I forgot what they're called, but if you look there, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it, but right here, there's some little bumps there. I'm sorry if my camera won't focus. Those are nodes. Those are actually aerial or roots that are forming there as well. So this is a good spot to cut. People tend to like doing top cuttings because they grow a little bit quicker. Campos portorum grows pretty fast for me either way, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm just gonna start on the top here. I want this whole section. And the nodes, the internodes on these are a little short. And the internode is basically the distance between one node to the next node. So you kind of want to try to cut in the middle. Boop. So now I have my top cutting. And if you can tell right there, there is another little leaf, another cataphyll that's forming. That's going to be a new leaf. And we can peel this off. We don't need that anymore. Just be careful when you're peeling this extra skin off here. You don't want to damage the node itself. It doesn't have to be perfect, it's fine if it's not. And actually, this area, this is going to be a node too. Once it gets to the point where this sprouts off and this becomes a new leaf, this will get probably roots on it and I'll be able to cut it again. Okay, so now we have our top cutting. This is top cutting, or a terminal cutting is what you may see them referred to as. This is Garden Safe Take Root. Cheap $5 rooting hormone. You don't have to have it if you don't want to use it, it's fine. Some people like to use cinnamon to dip the ends of their cuttings in. Cinnamon has antibacterial properties to it, so it'll help prevent rot. However, with the method that I use and the setup that I use it in, the chances of rot are very slim. And the reason why is because the moisture is very controlled, the way that I have it set up. So I don't typically use cinnamon. You're welcome to use it if you want. I have nothing against it. If it works for you, definitely do it. But here I'm just gonna go ahead and dip it in rooting hormone just so it's coated. You can tap off any excess like a makeup brush. And then you plop it in your cup. That's it. Once you have it in there, you can kind of center it if you like. You're gonna lightly pack sphagnum moss around the cutting. And why lightly? Because if you pack sphagnum moss too tight, you're going to lose the benefit of the sphagnum moss, which is the fact that it helps keep the airflow going. If it's packed too tightly, what you're going to see is that your cutting gets saturated. The cup gets filled and heavy with water. You don't want to have it super heavy when you add the water, like later on when it comes to actually water it. You want it to have some air pockets, and you pack lightly. If you have air pockets, when the roots start to grow, you actually see those little tiny like vellus hair looking things start to sprout off of them and try to find their way through the moss. It's actually kind of neat. Okay, now this cutting is ready. So I also want to make a note, since this is a top cutting and this is a partially unfurled leaf, if you take a top cutting or any cutting that has a partially unfurled leaf on it, if that leaf isn't completely ready to come out, you do take a risk in losing that leaf. My setup that I have been using, if you follow me on Instagram, if you've seen the cabinet that I'm using with the closed doors, I typically don't have this problem. The leaf may take longer to completely unfurl, or it may be a little bit deformed, but you're going to be getting a whole new plant essentially. So what's one leaf, you know? But yeah, so this is the process. You just repeat it. So I'm going to go ahead and put this one aside and take another cutting. We're going to get this one here. There we go. And I could probably get this one too. Boop. So now I have one leaf left on my little Campos Portonum. It'll grow back. The stick in here is like super crazy long. It goes to the bottom of the cup. So yeah, I'm not worried about it. It'll be perfectly fine. And now I have the potential to get, what, 3 new plants? So move that one aside. The process is the same. So here's my cutting with my leaf. This one actually looks really cool. You can see, hopefully you can see, maybe not. You can't see. Trust me when I say that it's beautiful. I need a camera. I'm using my phone. Anywho, tessellations is the word. So if you know what a Burle Marx Fantasy looks like, all the little grid-like patterns that you see on a Burle Marx Fantasy leaf, this looks similar to that. And again, I'm sorry that you can't tell using my phone. But this particular leaf is really super pretty. There's also some orange spots in there and some orange on the other side of the leaf. So it's really pretty. But yeah, you just repeat the process. So you took your cutting, you're gonna go ahead and take your rooting hormone if you wanna use it, dip it in there, I know this one has roots already. It's fine. It ain't gonna hurt them. Got my rooting hormone on there. Just gonna stick it right on top. You don't want to push down. You just want to stick it right on top of your buffer that you made. So just like, ugh, it's hard to do this with gloves. There we go. So you can kind of see in there, I'm just lightly setting it right there. And then you can use your one hand or whatever to hold the cup while you keep the leaf in place, and lightly pack some. I use long strand sphagnum moss just because it's amazing. Thank you, Amanda. Long strand, you can kind of like wrap it around there, and then I only used like 2 strands, and then you can take whatever little leftovers that are on there and fill it up. Now you can kind of tell that this moss is not compacted. Okay, this video. Ooh. Anyway, the moss is not compacted in any way, shape, or form. There is room in there for it to kind of squeeze through and move out, expand, if you will. Okay, here's my third and final campo cutting. I do have 2 other plants I'm going to do, so I'm going to try to just do those real quick after this. Same process. You're going to dip it in rooting hormone if you want to do that. Tap off your excess like a makeup brush. Lightly set your cutting down the middle of your cup or whatever container you're using for this particular method, and then pack around the outside with your sphagnum moss. This is my favorite method of doing propagations because it works so well. I don't know why. I don't know how I figured it out. Sometimes when it comes to plants, you just kind of have to experiment. You have a lot of people saying, no, you got to do this and you got to do that. And you know what? No, you don't. If you're doing something different and that works for you, cool. That works for you. Like if you come to my Instagram, you're not really going to find any pictures of water propagation because no hate against it, but I can't, it doesn't work for me. Anything in water propagation, I kill it or it rots as soon as I get it out and transfer it to soil. I gave up on it a long time ago. All right. That's Campo Sportonum. All right, so for the second plant that I'm going to be propagating today and cutting, this was like my holy grail plant for the longest time. It actually, I got it for a really good deal on a buy-sell trade group online on Facebook, and I think it shipped, it was like the middle of April. Either way, doesn't matter. It took 14 days to get to me, and it only lost 1 leaf, so I was really super happy about that, and I babied it for the longest time. But I have since taken 2 cuttings from this to propagate it so I can make more. This is a Burley Marks Fantasy, and if you remember earlier I was talking about tessellations, that is the pattern on these leaves. So I'm probably, oh yeah, you can see a little bit. So if you can see those like grid lines, that's tessellations, and that's what I was talking about on the other plant. Anyway, this plant is super pretty. It does really well in terrariums. I have it living in my cabinet right now, and I've already taken cuttings. Right here is the last time I took a cutting from it. So it's already grown back, and I took that cutting like maybe 2.5, 3 weeks ago. So we already have new growth here. I'm gonna go ahead and chop it again, make another propagation. So this is a new plant. Whenever you're switching plants, I recommend that you sanitize your scissors or your knife or whatever to make sure that it's clean. So just make sure that that is clean. You don't want no germies. Don't want your plant to get the Rona. And then just dry it off. Ooh, I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry. I forgot that I'm wearing a microphone. It's my first time. All right, so with this one, I'm gonna take the cutting. I'm actually gonna do, my hands are shaking. I'm gonna do some additional trimming on here. So right here is the last time I took the cut. So I'm gonna get rid of that because I can see on my side here that there is some root growing. Oh, why you gotta be so bendy? Come on, there we go. Okay, so if you can see that little, maybe not. Oh, you gotta, oh, okay, you can see it from there. Those two lighter bumps on the opposite sides of this reddish color thing in the middle here, those are both roots that are coming out. They're starting to form. So I'm gonna probably chop off this bottom leaf right here so that I have some stem to get it to fit into my cup. This leaf isn't perfect anyway. As you can see, the bottom kind of like broke off. I don't remember what I did. Don't know. But it's getting the chop now, so it's hard to chop and show you guys what I'm doing. I'm gonna be taking, I'm gonna be taking the cutting from right here. Boop. Okay. Now, I'm gonna get rid of this bottom leaf here, which you can cut off if you want. I'm just gonna try to carefully peel it off. And there's a node down there actually. It's so hard to see in this light, you guys. This is an old caterpillar. I forgot what the word for old caterpillars is. It's being a pain in the butt. Just gonna chop it. Okay, so here's what I'm left with. I have a single leaf, but I also have another one that's getting ready to come out. So I'm gonna do the same thing just like I did with the Campos Portonum. It's so fun to say, Campos Portonum. But this Burley Marks Fantasy, I'm gonna go ahead and dip the end where the nodes and the roots are. There's actually two, the internodes on this one are kind of close together too. There's actually two nodes. Why you gotta be like that, camera? Either way, two nodes right next to each other. So while it's possible that both of those will root and maybe sprout off of one each other, it's very unlikely just because the nodes are so close. And there was a leaf on that bottom one and I kind of snipped it off. Dipped in rooting powder. We're gonna stick it lightly. Ooh, I felt the perlite. If you stick your cutting in your cup and instead of being soft you hear it like a crunch or you feel crunch, that means that your buffer layer needs a patch. It's not thick enough. You don't want the bottom of your cutting sitting directly on top of the perlite where the water comes and gets wicked up. And some people are going to be like, well, the moss is moist. Yes, it is. But for me, I haven't had any issues. I mean, you're welcome to go ahead and do it. If you want to take a cutting and let it callus over. But if you've noticed, none of these are callusing. I haven't let any of them callus. Smaller cuttings tend to dry out quicker in my very limited experience. And if you haven't already heard yet, I'm not a professional. I do this for fun because plants are fun. So right now I'm packing lightly some sphagnum moss. And I do plan on doing an update on these so you can see that they really worked. You also see updates on my Instagram at Philodendreams. Okay. Looky. Also, I'm sorry, I'm weird. It's raining. Okay, this is our little Burley Marks Fantasy cutting. We have a single leaf on this one. That leaf will probably take about 2 weeks to sprout. That's how long the other one took, and it had a leaf ready on the way. So that's Burley Marks Fantasy. I'm not going to take any more cuttings from that plant. This is what I'm left with. I'm going to go ahead and let it grow probably off of this node and get back to where it was before I take another cutting. Maybe another, 2 to 3 weeks for something else to pop out. We'll see. It might take a little bit longer. Okay, and last but not least, this is a Scindapsus moonlight, Trobei moonlight, whatever you want to call it. I call it Trobei. It's a moonlight plant. So when I first got this plant, it also took a long time to get here. It was also a wish list plant for me. Really wanted it. So these are the original leaves over here, and you can see some spotting. This one has a tear on it. So those ones are probably getting ready to go. They ain't gonna make it much longer, but I do have a bunch of new leaves over here that are coming out. So we've got 1, 2, 3, at least 4, maybe 5 possibly more that are on the way. But I did notice last night when I was getting plants picked out for this video that there is a node, a visible node anyway. I've never propagated this plant before, so it's not super obvious to me, but that little bump right there, and I know it's blurry and you probably can't see it because my phone sucks, but anywho, it's that little brown bump. That is a node that's going to start rooting. And if you can't tell, this plant is very, very happy in sphagnum moss and perlite. If you can see, it's actually growing into the perlite, which is okay. Just got to be careful with watering when you get in there. And that's why the squeezy bottles come in handy. So you can get in the side of the cup like this and squeeze water where you need it. But anywho. Same thing with this one. I'm going to take that, where that node is, I'm going to chop that off and I'm going to try to propagate that. This will be my first time. Where's my alcohol? Here it is. That's funny. I never say where's the alcohol because I don't drink. Weird, right? Okay. I have to, now that I touched it, I have to spray it again. I had a piece of moss on it. So, ooh. So you spray it, let it dry. Really, you just don't want any diseases carrying over from one plant to another. I don't think that my plants have diseases, but I'm also not a horticulturist and I don't have a degree in botany as much as I would love to have one. You find the spot that you want to cut. With this one, the node, you can't see it because it's on my side, but this little bump right here, here we go. And then there's an old leaf thing. I'm gonna just get rid of that. Boop. And it looks like right about here is the distance between, is the halfway point basically between the node that I want, that I'm gonna plant, to the node that's underneath of it. And there actually is a root coming out of there, but you can't see it. So I'm gonna chop that just like that. And now I have what, 1, 2, 3. I've got 3 leaves on this with one, there we go. That's a little bit easier to see. I need a vlogging camera, you guys. One node that's gonna pop out. We have a new leaf here on this side that's gonna take its time, I'm sure, unfurling. These leaves took forever. Same thing, I'm gonna use the rooting hormone. No sap. I just wanted to see if there was any sap coming out of there. I've never chopped one of these, you guys. So I'm gonna dip it in my rooting hormone, just like that. Tap it off. Just take your cutting, stick it right in there, hold it like so, and then you lightly pack your moss around it. Get in there. Quit being a jerk. Oh. Oh. Bigger cuttings like this, that is a risk. They could fall out while you're putting them in there. It's fine. It's not gonna hurt them. Unless you step on it right after, then it's probably not gonna make it. Okay. So if it's a little precarious, you can add a little more moss on top. Lightly. You don't want to suffocate it. Ugh. Especially that new leaf. I want that to have room to come out. Okay. So here's what we have for the true. God, that leaf is so pretty. For the true BI moonlight, Scindapsus moonlight, whatever you want to call it. Now that that's done, I've got 6 cuttings that I've taken today. These are going to go into my cabinet. Again, my cabinet is usually in the high 70s ambient temperatures. There's a heat mat in there. The heat mat is set to like 79 or 80 degrees. When I do cuttings, I put them on top of the heat mat. People are afraid to use a heat mat because it'll burn. If you use perlite, like so, in the bottom of your cups, the perlite will act as a buffer for your heat mat, protecting your cutting from burning. This is a good thing. You can also use straight sphagnum moss to root your cuttings. That's fine. I have cuttings that are in straight sphagnum moss. Just be careful if you're using a heat mat. and try to have something like a buffer between it. You could even use like a nursery container. I have one of the black 10 by 20 trays right now that all my stuff is for this video. You could use that as a buffer, something in between the cutting itself, the bottom of the cutting, and the heat mat to help dissipate it a little bit. You want the medium that it's in to be warm, but you don't want it to burn or get dried out too fast. People will ask, you're not using dirt, where do the plants get their nutrition from? Great question. I have an answer for you. Okay. I don't have the bag down here because it's heavy and noisy, but this is stinky stuff. This is what I use for all of my cuttings. It is Espoma Biotone Seedling Starter or Seed Starter. It is a dissolvable plant nutrient that you can use in starting seeds, but it has macrorhizae, or however you say it. I don't know how. I'm sorry. I don't know how to pronounce it. Either way, good stuff for plants. It helps with root formation. So if you combine this with a little bit of water and shake it up, let it dissolve, you can actually use this to very lightly water the plants. So I typically will add, I'm literally not even joking when this is actually too much. So in my gloves, no, stay there, little buddies. There we go. Okay, so if you can see this small amount, it won't stay in one spot because I'm wearing gloves. But I will add that to one of these. This I believe is 500, yeah, this is 500 milliliters. So once I add that, I let it sit overnight and I shake it real good. And it turns the water like a funky brown. The little pellets stink. They stink real bad. Not as bad as like a fish emulsion, I don't think, but they work. I don't know how to explain it. So that is one way that you can add nutrition. With a plant like this Treubii, this Scindapsus moonlight, I am terrified to take this out of sphagnum moss. So if you have a plant or a cutting that you're growing in like a sphagnum moss, or even like a cocoa, this is cocoa coir. If you have like a cocoa medium, anything that you're using that's not soil or dirt, you need to supplement the nutritions in here that you're not getting from the soil or dirt. So one of the things besides using a plant food you can use, especially with like sphagnum moss, is, pardon my face, CalMag. You only need a little tiny bitty bit, okay? The directions, I ain't gonna lie, I don't follow them. I follow other people. So someone in the plant community in one of the biosultrate groups had listed like what they use. I believe his name was Jason. If you know who I'm talking about, hi Jason. And he had mentioned something about using like half a capful. Stuff doesn't have a smell, but I'm gonna show you just teeny tiny amounts. You could probably use like a fourth of a teaspoon or something. Like it's a really tiny amount. So I have the cap. This is the cap. The cap is probably like an inch around, like an inch in diameter. I mean, watch, it's seriously, that's it. That might have even been too much. You don't need a whole lot. And then you mix your water. You shake your water. You can use more if you have a bigger gallon container or a bigger watering can, then probably like a whole cap or something would be better, or maybe even a cap and a half. I use these because I can reach. That was fun. But I have everything in a cabinet, and the way I water is sometimes I don't want to take everything out and move it here or there, so I just aim and squirt. Sounds bad, but yeah. So I'll just add a little bit down here. This is high water. Just drizzle the tops a little bit, and then with these nozzles, if you can see here, you can actually reach with these cups to the bottom of the perlite, so I can squeeze it and add water. And then my plant's watered. Now, if you already have water in the bottom, then it's fine. If you add water to the top, it eventually will, gravity, it'll fall to the bottom. I'm sure there's science behind it, but I don't know how to explain it. It works for me. I actually have, here, I show you. So this is a strawberry shake philodendron cutting I received, I don't remember, in June, May? I don't remember what month, but it is absolutely beautiful. If you can see, there is some pink right there, and there's a little tinge of pink down there. The back, oh, it's gorgeous. I received this as an unrooted cutting, I believe, or if it had roots, it was like teeny tiny. And I actually was running out of perlite when I got it, and I didn't really know what to do, so I mixed perlite in with my sphagnum moss, pardon me. And then I put it on the heat mat, put it in my cabinet, close the doors, and then I just add water to it. So if you can, you probably won't be able to tell, so I'm sorry. There is pictures on Instagram. This red line right here, this red squiggle, and this line that is right here that is running, those are roots. Please, camera, do work for me. It's a little bit better. If I get enough money, I'll get a camera. But yeah, so this took probably, I'd say, about like a month. I don't see any new like growth points on it yet, but that's fine. There is a node, so it does have the chance to become a full plant. It's actually super easy and it's gorgeous. I love it. So you'll expect to see in these air pockets, which is why I don't tightly pack in the moss, the roots will start to climb through the moss, and you'll see the vellus hairs sticking to the side of the cup. Now, if you want to replant this or repot this into like a bigger cup, or actually, you know, a small pot, I would recommend that you squeeze the edges of the cup. And the reason for that is because you're going to be breaking lightly, gently breaking the connection, the adhesion from the vellus hairs that are on the roots, anything stuck to the side of the cup, and then it'll make it easier to pull out. And then you have a less chance of damaging the root system. And I could probably show you that with this one. I had to do that with this one. So you can tell on this moonlight that these roots are like, they big. They're very established. So if I wanted to remove this, I would just lightly squeeze the cup. Very carefully squeeze the cup softly. And then you want to find a point to pull. You could pull it from the bottom. And then, yeah, I'm not going to take it all the way out. This is just for your visualization, for your viewing pleasure. But yeah, so definitely doable. People seem to be like, I don't know what the word is that I want to use. Apprehensive is a good word to use sphagnum moss because things rot or whatever. One thing I will say is that one of the big issues is not packing it too tight. Don't pack it to the point where you don't see any gaps in the plant. You should see gaps, little air pockets along the side, just like where that root is. You can see the dark around. Stupid lights. I wonder if I can. If you can see the darkness around there, that's an air pocket. So when you add water to this, it'll go down those air pockets and around, fills out the spaces, and you can also get it right to the bottom of the cup. Where's my little nozzle? Here it is. So most of that, as you saw, went to the bottom of this cup. There is perlite down there, it'll help wick it up, but either way, I haven't had any trouble with this cutting. It is rooting just fine, as you can see. Well, I think that is all the cutting and chopping I'm going to do for today. It's warm in my basement. I'm in my basement. If you guys want to ask me any questions, you can always direct message me on Instagram. Again, it is at philodendreams. I also have a website, but I haven't updated it in a while. Might be doing that probably this weekend, which is philodendreams.com. I also have a Facebook page, philodendreams. So the only thing I don't have is a Twitter. I probably can't keep up with the Twitter. I won't lie. So yeah, shoot me any questions, or if you want to check out the plants that I have in my collection, those are also on Instagram. I have a couple articles on the website about propagating, why I don't do water propagation. all about perlite because it's the bomb. I'm gonna go ahead and list any products that I have in the description below. I think the next video I'm gonna do is an unboxing of a special plant that I snagged in a purge last night for me. Probably it's not gonna be last night for you, but it's a very pretty, unique type of piper plant. So a pepper plant, very textured. And if you were on my Instagram, you probably already saw it. I'm excited for that. So that'll be coming whenever it gets here, probably next week sometime. So yeah, follow, like, subscribe, comment, do all that fun stuff, and more to come in the future. Sorry about saying so much. It's my first time. But bye.